quote, the best is true of identifying job openings. You can now find out about virtually all jobs currently available in any field, in any location, worldwide. Applying for jobs online is also now the norm for many, if not most jobs. That is the best of times. The worst of times aspect of this is that everyone else can do the same. They can identify job openings. They can apply online. This means that competition for obtaining any given position is harder than ever. Adding to this, of course, and particularly true tonight, is the elephant in the room, as we say, the COVID pandemic. In many fields, hiring is at a standstill. No one knows if and when work remotely or a combination of remote and on-site or in person will resume. Some small businesses are closing. Hospitals and healthcare, schools K through 12, colleges and universities, social services, and many nonprofits continue with in-person services and budgets, many strained, and operating and stresses and changes from day to day complicate projecting personnel, complicate long-term planning, complicate budgets and hiring. Entrepreneurial startups, on the other hand, seem to be increasing. Some career experts predict that lifelong careers are on the way out, that staying or growing with one organization, one company, one job, and moving up within one employer or organization is on the way out. They predict that moving from field to field or job to job will be the new norm. That remains to be seen. Given these various pluses and minuses, your guide to a successful job search tonight will be under 10 general headings. General guidelines, best practices for successfully presenting yourself that are a combination of both the tried and the true and the new. So what is the first? The first is identifying and decoding job openings. I'm not sure if you can read this, but I will repeat everything. Identifying job openings. This is really a big deal. You know, whether you're looking up LinkedIn or whether you're looking up jobs through the National Association of Social Workers, or if you're looking up employment in Larchmont or jobs with animals, you can, through various websites or through Google search, identify just about every available job. If you're using a database, if you're using a specialized group listing, if you're using, say, LinkedIn, the one thing you absolutely must do is go from those listings to the organization or company or institution's own website, if at all possible, and apply not through the database, but on the website itself. In most instances, it will say who is offering the job. Go right to them. When you go to that website, and sometimes you have to really search around to a heading that says careers or career opportunities. And then you'll go on it and then it'll say search jobs. When you do, get a sense of their current personnel situation. Is the job you're interested in the only job in that category? Or are there a whole bunch of jobs, which might indicate that the organization is changing, or that they're expanding, or that they're in trouble and they've let go a whole bunch of people? You can learn a lot. So remember, go to the specific hiring entity and look at all of their openings to get a sense of what's going on. The other aspect of going on their website is to read carefully how they talk about themselves, the description of the organization as a whole, what it does, how it characterizes itself. If there's an annual report, read it, download it, print it, or if there's a summary of the prior year's activities. This will be very important in your knowledge of the agency when you get to the cover letter, which we will get to soon. If there are many positions of particular interest to you on several organizations' websites, let's say you're looking for a job in a college or university, go to their website, go to their jobs opening, day after day, week after week, or if you can sign up for their list of jobs available, do that as per their instructions. So that is point number one, identifying and decoding job openings. Number two, the cover letter. You may think that with all of these personal websites and descriptions of you on the websites, you don't need a cover letter. Wrong. The cover letter is very important. The cover letter leads the prospective employer to your resume. It should not duplicate the information in the resume. You don't need to tell them that you have a bachelor's degree or that you graduated from Westchester Community College. It is on your resume. In the cover letter, you have to answer two questions. The first one you probably know about, which is why me? And there, you're going to say really nice things about yourself. But the second part of the cover letter is why you. Too often, the cover letter makes bragging points for you, the applicant, but fails to demonstrate that you know something about them. Research the agency or the organization or the company you are seeking to join. Let them know that you know something about them, what good work they do, what they are all about, what are they known for, and therefore why you want to join them. Link any adjective about you to a specific experience, a specific position held, or a community activity or skill. In the cover letter, you are going to use the phrase, as the attached resume indicates, or as the attached resume details, or as the attached resume elucidates. Don't just parrot the adjectives listed in the advertisement or the job description. And the final aspect of the cover letter is be concise. You don't know whether there is a person or a database reviewing your cover letter and resume. Whichever, the attention span of the entity or the person reviewing your cover letter and your resume is not very long. So you want your cover letter to be less than a page, and it should duplicate your contact information. They shouldn't have to go from the cover letter back to your resume to have your email, your phone number, your address. It should all be on that. Now, the cover letter is going to change somewhat for each position you're applying to, but the basic notion that it answers the question, that first it says what you are applying for and where you saw that advertisement, and then something about why me and something about why you is going to be in every single cover letter that you write. And you must have one, even though it doesn't specifically ask for one. Then we get to the really important second half of the application process, which is the resume. Have a standard resume. You can change some of the details as needed. Be specific. Have a chronological resume, not a functional one. You want everything in chronological order, reverse the most current thing first. So after you have your name, your address, your phone number, your email, you're going to start with experience. Another thing. You may have been taught at the top of a resume to use the phrase objective. Do not use that phrase. Your objective is to obtain whatever job it is that's in the advertisement, and you're covering that in the cover letter. You can, however, use a heading, a substitute heading called summary, where you can write a line or two about you, about what you're particularly good at, or that what you want to be known as. Then you do your headings. You're going to start with experience. You're going to go from the present, and in all instances, you're going to write more about the present and less about the past. Feel free to group things, especially jobs that may have been freelance, short-term, or time-limited, or internships. You can say a variety of short-term and summer positions, and then just list them. After you have your heading experience, you can then have other headings that highlight stuff that you want people to know, such as community service, if you've done it, volunteer positions, which can or cannot be the same as community service, any grants you may have gotten, any presentations you have made, any special recognition, any publications. Almost near the end, you're going to conclude with education. Again, in reverse chronological order. Your most advanced degree and your most recent education first, and then go down to before that, before that, before that. And you don't have to do too much detailed chronology. If you went to Manhattanville College for 4 years and you graduated in 1978, you don't have to say 1975 to 1978. You can just say Manhattanville College, New York, BA, 1978, and then right below your major subject or your major subjects. If you were on Dean's List or an honor student throughout, or there's something special, you can say that at the same time. Now, After all of this, if there's something that is not obvious or covered in your job experience, in your volunteer work, in your community service, you can have a category called certifications or special skills or special interests. Here you might write how proficient you are with the computer or what foreign languages you know, or special interests that might be relevant to the position you are seeking. Let's say you want to work with a veterinarian. Okay, so your special interests may be small animals or farm animals, something that links what the positions you're looking for and you. Remember that if you are relatively inexperienced, and mostly this applies to age, to young people, your resume should be approximately a page. If you are very experienced, it may be up to, but never any longer than 2 pages. And be very careful with tenses. Past tense for things that are over. Present tense for jobs or positions or special interests or skills that you are currently doing. And the other thing is, you don't have to have a very fancy, glorified typesetting. You don't have to have illustrations. It doesn't have to be all over the place. It should be very straightforward, and make sure that the typeface is large enough that the person reading it can see it. I prefer Times 12 font. There are about 4 or 5 fonts that are typically used in resumes. Use those. And I am holding, I don't know if you can see it, an article that appeared in the New York Times, Sunday, January 23. And it says, the humble resume still holds sway in hiring. And it goes right on and says everything that I've just told you. Notwithstanding that you can write this fancy artistic tome, that is not going to help you. That is not going to help. And not too many adjectives, but facts. When you're writing about jobs that you have had where the employer, it may not be obvious who they are or what they do, take the line right under your job title and the years and say what it is. It is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to services for persons with emotional difficulty. Or this is the branch office of an international organization that services X kinds of people, or that imports a certain kinds of product. Do not assume that the reader knows, and do not use initials or acronyms. Write out what it is. If you want to use the initial or the acronym, put them in parentheses and then use it the second or third time that you're mentioning the entity that you're talking about. Proofread. Make sure your grammar and spelling are correct. So there we have the 2 most important aspects of job hunting after identifying jobs, which is the cover letter and the resume, and they go together. Try not to duplicate the 2. Now, the interview. You know, in these times, it may be that you're not going to have a personal interview, and it may be in any times you're going to start with a telephone interview or a Zoom interview or a FaceTime interview, whatever, if they are able to see you, even if the workplace itself is casual, do dress up. Speak slowly, be calm, be concise, and don't be too wordy. Don't go on and on, just answer the question that's asked. If, after you go through all this, oh, and if you're invited to an interview, that's wonderful. That means that your resume and your cover letter are okay. You're not going to get invited to an interview for every job you apply to, but if you get invited to any, that means you're on the right track and you're in the ball game. If down the road they get back to you and say, we've hired somebody else, or if you never hear from them again, and if you're rejected for the position, if you can, ask the interviewer or the contact you've made if he or she can suggest any other agency or organization or company that may have a similar opening at present. And if so, when you phone or write them, ask if you may use that person's name. That is a very good entree. So that is the fourth thing, the interview. The fifth, I guess I should be writing, but I'm talking to you. Contacts and networks and how to obtain them. Go to conferences. Join professional organizations. Join and participate in local branches of associations. Keep friendly with former employers. Don't forget, even though you may have graduated ages ago, that college placement offices might be able to be helpful to you. Don't forget bulletin boards. And don't forget meet and greet functions. You may not be so keen, if indeed in these days you can, go to a cocktail party in New York City run by an organization that is related to your field. But this is the way to meet and greet. This is the way to make contacts. This is the way to find out what's going on. And even more so than the listing, who's hiring, what's happening with a certain organization. And people will remember that they have seen you. And this is a good thing. Probably you'll have to pay to belong to the national professional organization, the local or regional branch. Do that. Be active. Attend meetings. Volunteer to run a booth or work at an upcoming event or conference. You'll make contacts. You may learn about prospective openings or important new developments in the field. This is good if you're currently in the field. This is good if you've been a stay-at-home parent, or if you've been taking care of someone else and you've been out of the workforce, or if you yourself have been ill. This is a way to get back without worrying about, will I be invited? They're running a conference, they're selling something, they want to give out stuff at the booth, fine. You're going to be there working it for them. Or you will go to the luncheon, or you will go to the cocktail party and go. And they will remember seeing you. So that's the fifth point. So what do we have so far? We have identifying and decoding job openings. Very, very critical. The cover letter, equally important. The resume, of course, important. The interview. Contacts, networks, and how to obtain them. Now, that's 5 points. 6, And this is a word that keeps bandying about lately, mentors. Everybody wants a mentor. All these organizations are now mentoring. Of course you want a mentor. If you've recently taken a credit or non-credit course or obtained a degree, teachers, professors you may have worked with may become your mentor. Stay in touch with them. Talk to them. At work, a supervisor may be a mentor. Someone you meet at a conference, maybe even the speaker. Go up to the speaker afterwards. Introduce yourself. Stay in touch. People, it works both ways. You want a mentor, and people like to be mentors. They like to help other people. And it doesn't just mean that they will point you to a job. They can be a reference. They can hear of something and let you know. They can tell you that there's something going on that you might want to be invited to. So I would say, think mentor, not too formally. A mentor can just be a really good, knowledgeable buddy. And, the other thing, I'm sorry, I'm going back on the resume, is age. If you're starting out, it's fine to let people know when you graduated from college or from graduate school or from professional school. The older you are, the more disinclined you are to have those years on the resume. And that's fine. You don't have to. But you should have the years of your various positions. And again, if you want to cluster them, fine. And if there's a giant gap in your resume and there's an easy way to explain it, then do. And if not, you'll wait till your interview and you'll talk about the fact that you were taking care of someone, or you lived abroad for 2 years, or you were in Utah and now you're coming back to Washington, D.C. One more thing. If you're looking for a position in a particular location where you are not now living, it's very handy to have an address in that place, or to make it obvious in the cover letter and the resume that you have connections to that place. Otherwise, they may be very loath to consider you because they may not be too sure that you're really serious about going there. So you can say, I'm very eager to return to the DC area where I grew up. Or, as someone I spoke to yesterday, I am a native of Jamaica and eager to return to the West Indies. Or, I want to rejoin my family in wherever it might be. Or, loving the country, having spent summers in Maine, I am so eager for the kind of rural experience that a park ranger would suggest that I might have. Now, number 7, and this relates, reach out to expand your experience. There might be a fellowship, there might be a grant, there might be an award, there might be recognition. Go for it. You never know. There's the Peace Corps. There's AmeriCorps. There are Fulbright fellowships. I myself had a Fulbright grant that I wasn't looking for. I was working at a college at the time, and the Fulbright person sent around a list of all Fulbright grants coming up for the following year abroad. And I said, oh, let me look at that. I was an administrator. Most Fulbright grants are for researchers. And then there was one for college and university administrators to Germany, really because the German government wanted colleges and universities to accept German students here for a semester or a summer or a year. So I applied. Lo and behold, I found myself in Germany. So these things, and it changed, really did change my life. These things happen. The other thing is diversity. As you know, these days, particularly, diversity is an asset. So if you have an unusual background, if you're living in an all-white community and you happen to be Latino, if you came from the Far East and you're looking for a position not in the Far East, you may be at an advantage. So go for it and make sure they know the special identity that you have. And this can be under special interests, that can be under organizations, just something. That's number 7. Number 8, 9, and 10 are, in a certain sense, asides. ASIDE, not aside. Don't be discouraged. Looking for work is work. It takes time, even during normal times. It's especially difficult during COVID-19 times. Having difficulty obtaining new employment may have nothing to do with you, your competence, or your desirability. Whether you're starting out, seeking to move upward, to move to a different career direction, a different location, whether you've been laid off, fired, or your life circumstance have changed, remember, you have strengths. And some aspects of today's situation have nothing to do with you whatsoever. And somehow you have to not be undone by the fact that it may take you a while to connect. And if you are getting no responses whatsoever, have someone else look at your cover letter and your resume and a job description and let them tell you what they find not quite appealing, not quite strong. And then take a deep breath and don't be discouraged. Number 9, related to that, be flexible. Adjust your cover letter, adjust your resume, adjust your strategy. You might even venture into a different kind of position to be seeking if you're not having any positive results. Salary is an issue. You need to know what the positions are paying, and you need to know what you want to make. It has to be reasonable, but on the other hand, you don't want to undersell yourself either, which is another reason to look very carefully at job descriptions of what's open at the organizations or companies that you are applying to. See what the salary range is for the types of positions that you are in line for. Finally, be good to yourself. Take a few days off. If possible, even with masks, go out with friends. Exercise, take a walk. We are in hard times. Just remember, you're terrific. And you will get, hopefully, without too long, the position of your choice. Now, I believe you have on your screen my name, my email, my phone numbers. I'm going to open the floor now for any questions that you might immediately have for me, but please, if you have a follow-up question, feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to talk with you. And with a little self-promotion here, if you want to hire a career counselor, send me a little note. Call me and be very clear about what your return phone number is, and we'll talk about my being hired as your career counselor. Are there any questions from the floor?